Jen here with my final catch-up video for Tuesdays in the Attic. This is also for Mad About Mini Paper Pads, which is a series where we're using up all of our mini paper pads. So 6x6, 6x8, 8x8, 10x10, all those small paper pads that we have that we love so much, but they just kind of sit and accumulate. We are getting them all used up. So there are links down below for everybody who plays along. It changes a little bit every month, so definitely check it out and see who are in the links and go ahead and check out how they're using their mini paper pads. So the only measurement on the Freaky Fast formula for this week, this was the week of February 28th. If you go back and check Jacqie's video, and I think Mel might have actually posted a video as well. So if you go back and check their videos, it's from February 28th. And the only thing that we had to do was cut a bunch of 3x3 squares. So 9 3x3 squares. They could be all the same pattern, different patterns. Didn't really stipulate that specifically. So I went into my mini paper pads here. These are all pieces of 6x6 papers that I have from my Scrapbooking Cards Today sampler packs. So I just went in. They were part of my How to Kill a Kit with Style kit for February, which was vintage. So you can see kind of the vintagey feel with the colors and the flowers and that kind of thing. And so I just picked the ones that I thought I would like to use. I'm kind of doing the peachy and then little pops of like a sage green. And I'm not entirely sure who made these papers, just because I've taken everything out of my sampler packs and kind of combined them and put them all together. But I have a feeling that it's Echo Park. So either Echo Park or Cartabella, one of the two. I mean, I think Cartabella is made by Echo Park, but I just don't know under what label they might have released it. So I feel like that's what it is. It's textured paper, which I know Cartabella does a lot of the textured paper. It's really, really gorgeous. So I was kind of excited to be able to use them, find a reason to use them. And the reason that I picked that is because the little photo that I'm using is at my kitchen table in our old place, and I'm doing some filming, and I sort of took a picture of above my camera setup so that you could kind of see how I was filming overhead way back several years ago. But the cards, because I was doing some Project Life, the cards that are primarily in the layout that I was creating were peach in nature, and then it was sort of warm lighting, and I didn't really adjust it or change the temperature of the lighting when I printed the photo, so it has that sort of peachy tone to it. So I thought the peaches worked really good. And then I needed one more because it was 9 squares that we needed, so I picked that black and white like gingham type paper just to give a really bold contrast without a pattern that I felt would compete with everything else, but also there is some dark spots in the photo, and so I thought it kind of helped to balance that just a little bit. So I went ahead, picked those papers, cut them into their 3x3 squares, and just to give a little bit of interest in the background, because I decided to use some white cardstock, and also for me this is a way that I kind of mask my little bits of imperfection when I do grid layouts, because I don't tend to measure. I'm not usually super precise. I will pull out my ruler just to kind of get things lined up a little bit, but I'm not actually measuring or anything like that. I eyeball the whole thing. So I find that a little bit of mixed media in the background, a little bit of kind of busyness in the background helps to disguise where the papers might be slightly off one from the other. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. And I think I did good this time. I know I talk a lot about how peach is one of those colors that I can never seem to mix in my watercolors. I just can't seem to get that one right. But I think I did really good. I think I got a really good match. And it's probably because this is a slightly pinkish peach, and so it worked out a little bit better. And then I have that beautiful shimmery kind of, it's not, I don't know, is this a sage green? Whatever green this is. It's just really beautiful and shimmery and earthy. And so I pulled that out and used it too. And you just saw me there. I didn't want to waste all of the color that was on my brush. So I went ahead and made a couple of little tags just to use up those last little bits of shimmer. And it's just really beautiful, very subtle. It's in the background. Most of this is going to be covered up, which is totally okay. It was just to get a little bit of a disguise for the grid. So now that I have that all dry, I can go ahead and just figure out where I want to put all of my squares. Now, here's the interesting part about this Freaky Fast formula. You would think that, hey, 3x3 squares, I can make a quick grid, everything will fit really nicely, but the 3x3 squares kind of take up a majority of the page. And so you do have to be a little bit strategic about how you want to do this. Definitely you could squish all of the squares to one side or the other side, but at some point you have to decide where the picture is going to go. And so I did pick a square photo, and that photo is larger than the other squares. So, you know, I wouldn't necessarily be able to just insert the picture that I chose into the grid. It wouldn't have looked right. I would have had to squish it in somewhere. If you were doing like a 4x6 photo, again, you'd really have to kind of consider where you could put it. Maybe down at the bottom if you didn't want to cover up any of the squares from the grid. You could print smaller photos and put them right into some of the squares. Like, it definitely on the outside kind of looked like a more simple type formula, but there is a little bit of strategy and a little bit of thought that goes into how you're going to get all those squares down, and then also how you're going to place your photos, what size you might want to print out. So I think that's where the challenge came in, and that was really fun, was trying to figure that out. And so you can see here what I've done is I've spread my squares out so they take up the whole page essentially, and then I'm going to take my photo and kind of plonk it in one of the crossroads between four of the squares. So that was my solution for it, because I think in order to have sort of incorporated it properly into the grid, I would have had to remove a square, and then I'm not using all 9 of them. So, you know, that was the fun, that was the challenge, at least for me. Maybe the other two ladies thought, you know, something else was kind of more fun, but for me it was the challenge of having 9 of those squares, and they're just that right measurement that they kind of take up a majority of the page. So where do you kind of fit different sized photos into it? And so here was my solution, and I love it. I think that turned out really good, and it kind of breaks things up and strategically again hides any of those little imperfections of the squares not exactly lining up. Because you saw I did pull out my T-ruler and kind of use it as a basic guideline to make sure I wasn't way off, but I wasn't looking at the numbers and specifically trying to measure where the squares went. It was more just to give me a rough guideline. And so once all my squares were down, then I hopped into my Maggie Holmes sticker book, the big American Craft sticker book that I'm still working my way through. That was also in my kit because it obviously has a beautiful kind of vintagey vibe to it. So I thought it would match really well with a lot of the papers that I had chosen. And it has a lot of words and phrases and kind of little things that you can add. So it's just an all-around kind of good grab to put into a kit. And so I went through the sticker book and kind of picked out a few stickers to go on each square. And this again is where a little bit of strategy comes in. So you can see that all of my placements for my stickers are kind of off center. I don't have anything stuck directly into the middle of the square, and everything is either kind of leading towards the edges of the square or is coming right off the edge of the square. And so because everything kind of, you know, falls off the edge a little bit, it tricks the eye into thinking that things are lined up a little bit more than they are. At least that's what I think. And I definitely recommend that if you are a non-measurer like I am, to use this trick. It'll just kind of trick your eye a little bit and cover up some of those spots where you know that things aren't lined up exactly perfectly, because your eye kind of is trying to take in all of the information within the square and not necessarily focusing on the discrepancies outside or comparing all of the squares one to the other, because each one is unique and each one looks completely different. So that's kind of how you're fooling your eye there. And then you don't notice if there's weird gaps between two squares or if one is slightly higher than another one, that kind of thing. And it just adds, again, a little bit of interest and makes your eye want to follow around the whole page. And so it really allows you to take in all of those fun little details. Now, I do also love a really beautiful, clean grid. And if that is what I was going for, and I fully measured everything, I would probably keep all of my embellishments within each square, because I would want your eye to really notice how perfect and crisp and clean all the lines are, and just kind of take that in and appreciate that point of the layout. But because I didn't do any of that measuring, I'm just going to trick the eye a little bit and kind of offset things and have things falling over the edge of each of the squares, and then that way that's the kind of thing you notice, rather than the fact that I can clearly see even from here, some of the squares don't quite line up as good as they should. And it's just kind of fun. It makes each square a little bit different. And so it's just fun. It helps you to kind of squish things in, and you can use maybe some different shapes of embellishments and stuff like that, which creates movement. And so, yeah. I really liked it. I put some stickers in every single square, and then I also went ahead and put a couple of puffy gold. They're sort of like a puffy gold sticker, but they're hard. And they're hearts. Those are from Freckled Fawn. I put 3 of those down to help give a bit of a visual triangle. And then my title I put down as well, that just says me time, because that's definitely what it was when I was crafting, was some me time at the kitchen table when all the kids were in bed, back when we only had 3 kids. I laugh because it's funny. It feels like we're now a household of 8. So 3 kids back then was quiet. But yeah, it was my me time. So that's the title that I put. And then I am doing an outline. I just really love that bold, black, sketchy outline that helps to pop the vibrancy of the peaches and the green. And yeah, just pretty simple. I'm even outlining my photo. It was an Instagram photo way back when Instagram had frames and all that other kind of stuff. So there is a white border around it, and I did cut it just a little bit so that it would just be a little bit closer in size to the 3x3 squares, but I left some of that white, and so I decided to do a sketchy border around that as well. And my Sharpie works really good, so it doesn't smudge or anything like that. And then my final touch is a splash of gold in every square as well. So every square gets its own little splatter of some mixed media and some shimmer. And that's it. That is my layout for today. This again was Tuesdays in the Attic for February 28th, but it's also Mad About Mini Paper Pads Day today. So please go and check out everybody down below and see how they're using their mini paper pads. And until next time, happy scrapping. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.
Bye. Thanks to me. To my channel.